Panzerkampfwagen VI Ausführung E.
Now that I've got your attention, let me introduce today's star, a machine built in response to the Soviet T-34 and KV tanks, a technical marvel of the Third Reich that could freeze your blood at first sight. A truly legendary tank, familiar to anyone who's ever played the classic Call of Duty or Battlefield games, or even just studied World War II. The Tiger I, or more precisely, the Panzerkampfwagen V Ausführung E, was the brainchild of German engineers. Some argue it could have changed the course of the war for Germany, if not for a series of circumstances that held it back. But more on that later. For now, let's break down its name. Panzerkampfwagen means armored combat vehicle. V is the Roman numeral 6, marking it as the sixth tank in its series. Ausführung, or Auf for short, translates as execution, which basically means the tank's modification or model. The letter E denotes the specific variant. Put together, the full name roughly translates to Armored Combat Vehicle Number 6, Model E. Pretty cool, right? Origins: 1941, the second year of the war. The failure of Operation Typhoon and the Red Army's counteroffensive made it clear to the German High Command that the Russian front wouldn't be an easy walk. Soviet T-34 and KV-1 tanks, we'll cover them in other videos, make sure to subscribe, were an unpleasant surprise right from the start. They outclassed German tanks in armor, firepower, and mobility. Take the famous example of Zinovy Kolobanov's single KV-1 destroying 22 German tanks in a single battle. 22! This forced the German High Command, and Hitler himself, to order in November 1941 the development of an unprecedented machine, a direct response to Soviet engineering genius. Thus began not just the creation of a tank, but the birth of a symbol of German tank design. Duel of the Designers. At first, there were two Tiger prototypes, one from Porsche, yes, the same Porsche known today for luxury cars, and another from Henschel. Ferdinand Porsche, being a close friend of Hitler, had many convinced his design would win. But during testing, his model proved too complicated and temperamental for wartime conditions. The Porsche Tiger had an unreliable petroelectric engine. It overheated, broke down often, and guzzled fuel like crazy. Remember, the Tiger itself was already a thirsty machine. Henschel opted for a simpler, mechanical engine with a Maybach transmission, more reliable and easier to repair. In April 1942, both machines were presented to Hitler. Porsche's prototype broke down during the trials. Henschel's tank ran the course flawlessly and was approved for mass production. It would become the Tiger I we know today. Tiger, the Predator. The Tiger weighed nearly 60 tons and was armed with the legendary 88mm KWK-36, unmatched at the time. Its shells could pierce any Allied tank from up to 2 kilometers, long before the enemy even knew the Tiger was there. A true predator, spotting prey before it could react. Its frontal armor reached 100 millimeters, making it nearly impervious to standard 45 and 76 millimeter Red Army guns, as well as most British and American artillery. But this power came at a cost. The 700 horsepower Maybach engine struggled to move the 57-ton giant. On roads, it could hit 38 kmph, but in mud and swamp on the Eastern Front, it became a lumbering monster. Its interleaved road wheels smoothed the ride and allowed accurate fire on the move. But maintenance was a nightmare, especially in winter when mud froze solid overnight. The Tiger was expensive, complex, and prone to breakdowns. Yet despite these flaws, they didn't stop it from becoming a symbol of terror for its enemies, a monster capable of wiping out an entire column of tanks until its ammo ran out. Also worth noting that the Porsche chassis didn't disappear into history. Later, it was transformed into the fearsome Ferdinand tank destroyers. But that's another story. Henschel won the prototype duel, and his tank became the legendary Tiger. Yet this victory was only the beginning. Real battlefield trials awaited. Baptism by fire. August 29, 1942, marks the Tigers' combat debut. At that time, the Red Army was conducting the Signavino operation to break the siege of Leningrad, which had lasted over 300 days. 4 Tigers were sent to the front near Mga station, and disaster struck almost immediately. 2 tanks broke down due to gearbox failure. 1 engine overheated and caught fire, leaving only 1 to reach the battlefield. That single Tiger destroyed several Soviet tanks and artillery pieces, but it couldn't turn the tide of the battle. The legend of the invincible beast began, stuck in the mud. Despite the rocky start, the German command pressed on, deploying Tigers in larger numbers. For instance, around 40 at the battles near Kharkov in the period from February-March 1943. You must understand that a single 57-ton steel monster could take out an entire enemy column of tanks, trucks, and artillery, a significant factor in retaking the city. Word spread fast. Impenetrable Tigers struck fear into soldiers simply by name. The Red Army began looking for ways to counter this new weapon. By May 1943, the first guidelines were issued. Infantry used Molotov cocktails and anti-tank grenades, while artillery was trained for ambush tactics at close range to target vulnerable parts like tracks and turrets. Meanwhile, Tiger crews continued leaving their mark on the battlefield, soon heading into history's largest tank engagement, the Battle of Kursk. Tiger's glory and widespread use. 1943 became the Tigers' triumphant year. Participating in the largest battles of World War II, it proved itself a decisive force on the battlefield. The highlight, the Battle of Kursk. Operation Citadel, where 148 Tigers spearheaded attacks, breaking Soviet lines and destroying enemy vehicles from long distances. Experienced crews tallied dozens of kills, yet even their efforts couldn't change the battle's outcome. The bravery and courage of the Soviet soldiers did not bend even under the roar of such a machine. Germany failed to regain the strategic initiative. The Tiger also saw action outside Europe. In battles in Tunisia from April 20 to 24, the Tigers from 501st Tank Battalion destroyed 75 enemy tanks and many more artillery pieces, trucks, and APCs. But even with this success, the German troops in Tunisia eventually capitulated, and all the tanks that had survived by that time were either blown up by their crews or fell into the hands of the Allies. Rommel's campaign ended in defeat. Could history have been different if they arrived earlier to fight in the battle for El Alamein? Only speculation remains. After Africa, the Allied forces landed in southern Italy and Sicily. Here, Tigers faced mountainous terrain for the first time. Despite heavy armor and firepower, they suffered from their teething problems, engine overloads, frequent breakdowns, and complex repairs. German crews sometimes had to destroy their own tanks when recovery was impossible. Still, in ambushes and counterattacks, a single Tiger could halt an entire Allied column, reinforcing its myth of invincibility. By late 1943 to 44, Tigers were deployed everywhere, from the Eastern Front steppes to African deserts and Italian mountains. They truly became a symbol of German power and terror. But with glory came weaknesses. Cost was too high. One Tiger equaled roughly 4 Soviet T-34s or American Shermans. Germany couldn't afford mass production. Technical complexity and chronic shortages were constant issues. Yet for millions of Allied and Soviet soldiers, the word Tiger meant one thing: a deadly threat on the battlefield. Final phase. From 1944, the Tiger entered its final chapter. Germany, weakened after Kursk and massive Red Army counterattacks, was losing military and industrial power.
Tigers still remained on the Eastern Front, but mostly defensively. Red Army advances in Belarus shattered heavy battalions. During Operation Bagration in June 1944, entire Tiger units were destroyed by the Soviets or abandoned by the Germans. Even dozens of kills that Tiger crews reported already didn't matter. The Red Army was advancing too fast. By the end of 1944, few Tigers remained, and Germany could no longer replace losses. On the Western Front, the story was similar. After D-Day, Tigers still showed their might, like Michael Whitman's legendary attack at Villers-Bocage. This attack cost the British 13 tanks, 20 armored personnel carriers, transporters, and armored cars, as well as 2 anti-tank guns. But such episodes were rare. Allied air superiority and the decimated Luftwaffe meant German armor was easy prey for Typhoon and Thunderbolt aircraft. Tigers could withstand anti-tank guns or face off against Shermans, but little could stop bombs and rockets from above. And this is not to mention that by 1944, the tanks of the anti-Hitler coalition had been significantly modified, and although they did not surpass the Tigers in armament and armor, they could give a serious rebuff.
Thus ended the legend of the Tiger. A symbol of terror, yes, but its cost, complexity, and Allied air power prevented it from reaching full potential. In total, over the period from July 1942 to August 1944, 1,347 Tiger tanks were produced. By 1945, only a handful remained. Their roar was drowned by the engines of mass-produced T-34s and Shermans, burying the myth of invincibility. Currently, there are 9 surviving Tiger I tanks in the world, located in museums and private collections across Great Britain, the United States, France, and Russia. And only one machine, Tiger 131, is in fully running condition and can be found at the Tank Museum in Bovington, England. By 1943, everyone knew the first Tiger had limits, mobility and reliability issues. Yet German engineers pressed on, creating an even more formidable machine, the King Tiger. Dramatic, terrifying, and even deadlier than its predecessor.